The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. Election season has yet to kick off, and yet the factions of the ruling party PDP-Laban are already fighting over who gets to be the legitimate party. Since the members can't resolve the issue among themselves, the final decision is now up to the Comelec. Arian Columbian with the details.
The Federalismo ng Dugong Dakilang Samahan or PDDS has joined forces with PDP-Laban faction led by Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi. The group, led by PACC Chairman Greco Bellica, said it aims to support the faction's campaign in areas led by members of the PDDS.
Because we are moving into a party politics, no? And we share the same principles, the same ideology. So, nagtutulong-tulong kami.
PDP-Laban has earlier named Bellica as one of its guest candidates.
Parehas kami ng prinsipyo, federalism, para siya tinutulak. And we belong to the same, parang same group na supports the administration, who support President Duterte.
Though Senator Bongo has repeatedly turned down his nomination as PDP-Laban's presidential candidate, the party says it will continue to push for his candidacy. Meanwhile, the Comelec is asking the camp of Senator Coco Pimentel to answer the petition filed by Cusi's camp.
After which we will also be given 5 days to reply dun sa sagot nila, and the Comelec will join all the issues on by September 27 and come out with a resolution eventually.
Cusi has high hopes that their faction will be favored by the Comelec.
Just hoping and praying that it will be favorable to us, but we cannot preempt whatever the decision of the Comelec.
Cusi also wants the Comelec to give their decision as soon as possible so their camp can move forward with their plans for the campaign.
It's good for both sides, no? To have it resolved. Para sa ganon, we can move on, whatever it is.
Over in Cavite, members of the so-called grassroots faction, led by Senator Manny Pacquiao, gathered to support his presidential bid. They deny being part of the faction led by Senator Coco Pimentel and say they have no alliances with Pacquiao's camp.
Simula po ito sa mga nagsama-samang mga organisasyon sa buong Pilipinas, individual na voluntaryong sumusuporta kay Senator Manny.
However, Pacquiao was a no-show in the group's gathering. Arian Columbian, we are One News.
Pfizer vaccines can now be used as a booster shot for those aged 65 and above in the USA. The booster dose can be administered at least 6 months after the completion of the second dose. Also included in the authorization are high-risk individuals, as the US FDA advisors voted to recommend COVID-19 booster shots after overwhelmingly rejecting a call for broader approval. How does the global shortfall in medical oxygen impact the spread and treatment of COVID-19? An expert from Johns Hopkins University discusses this on Bloomberg Surveillance. Let's listen in.
Bhakti, this is medical oxygen. We all know the tanks, and this is a crisis of the utmost in Africa and others. They don't have enough medical oxygen. Why?
Because of the infrastructure in place to deliver oxygen. So the United States, much of our oxygen supply relies on liquid oxygen. So these huge units producing oxygen, shipping them in tankers, sending them to health facilities. They require a huge amount of investment. In sub-Saharan Africa and other low-resource settings, we rely on oxygen cylinders, PSA plants. Many health facilities don't have like a piping for wall oxygen, so high pressure oxygen required for the ICU setting.
Filter that right into the COVID crisis, the fear you have, others at Johns Hopkins, HOTES and the rest, about Africa, about India and the rest. Bring it to COVID right now.
So COVID was an opportunity where we saw that this is a huge gap, right? We have known that under 5 mortality is high. We know that these countries have had higher mortality in influenza season, secondary to bacterial pneumonia. But along comes COVID, right, with high numbers of cases, short amount of time to prepare, and this gap is revealed. And many countries in sub-Saharan Africa are reliant on their neighbors. Neighboring countries are going through the same crisis to deliver oxygen. And so now there is a huge need, especially as we go into another viral season. We have ongoing surges of COVID in many countries. We need to start building oxygen ecosystem infrastructure, not just for this pandemic, but future pandemics also.
With World Contraception Day fast approaching, relevant agencies are now thinking of ways to further avoid teenage and unwanted pregnancies in the country. Laila Pangilinan with the details.
The World Contraception Day takes place on September 26th every year. Launched in 2007, the WCD's mission is to raise awareness about contraception and safe sex, and to help each new generation of adults make informed decisions until every pregnancy in the world is a planned one. In the Philippines, the Commission on Population and Development in the Department of Health will lead the occasion. During her accomplishment report for this year's Responsible Parenthood and Reproductive Health Law, DOH Undersecretary for Public Health Services Maria Rosario Vergere reported a decline of 1.8% in teenage pregnancies that belong to the 15 to 19-year-old bracket in 2018 to 2019. However, she also noted the 7% rise in pregnancies for ages 10 to 14 in the same year.
Assumption for very young pregnancies may be cases of abuse or gender-based violence.
The Philippines has one of the highest adolescent birth rates among the ASEAN member states. This and other factors prompted the birth of Executive Order Number 141, issued June 29 of this year. The EO aims to address the root causes of the rising numbers of teenage pregnancies and mobilizing government agencies for the purpose.
One of the areas that we pointed out that needed really more support was in the area of adolescent health and development, adolescent.
The NCR, Central Luzon, and Calabar Zone have consistently been on the list of regions where teenage pregnancy rates are high, though these numbers have significantly dropped since 2016.
Yung pinakamataas na bilang ng teen pregnancy was actually seen after the RPRH law was passed noong mga 2016, when we had around 208,000 teen pregnancies. So, yung nakita natin noong 2019 is a decline from the 207,000 to 180,000.
Contraceptives may be given to teenage girls as young as 10 years old.
We examine the patient first, and the most popular pa rin talaga po is pills. Pills pa rin, because this is a temporary method. Someday, this person will try to, when they mature enough, magkakaroon din sila ng pamilya, and to tell you frankly, yung mga ganyan tinitigyawat pa, makakatulong din ang mga pills dyan. Pag pills, injectables are applicable din sa mga teens.
The Population Commission and the Health Department are also eyeing to push for sex education in younger students to further avoid teenage pregnancies.
So we're missing something here. Maybe our sex education is only focused on those who are senior high school, no? And again, I like to emphasize is sexual education. My choice, my life. It's my decision. Let's empower our teen. Let's lower down the sexual education up to 9 years old.
The Population Commission reminds families that mobility issues brought about the COVID-19 pandemic should not be made as an excuse for additional members of the family. For News 5, Laila Pangilinan, We Are One News.
Time now for a quick look at some of today's headlines. Kilusang Bagong Lipunan nominates Bongbong Marcos as their presidential bet, but the former senator has yet to formally accept the nomination. Abra, Baguio City, and Bohol are now under GCQ with heightened restrictions. Ilocos Norte, meanwhile, has been de-escalated from GCQ with heightened restrictions to regular GCQ. And Miss Universe Philippines candidates showcased their national costumes for this year's competition. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us again later at 1 p.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Just register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.